Back in the blur of central London, Pembrokeshire feels like a distant era. My phone's back on, so I'm happy, right?
Hi, Catherine. Hi. Where are you? Yeah, I will. I'm in the station now. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, bye.
To find out if gadgets really do make us happy, I've come to St Pancras Station to meet a consumer psychologist.
We know that upgrade culture has been accelerating through the years. What effect would you say that was having on us as people?
I would say it has a detrimental effect. We're not aware of how it actually impacts on us because we are on a hedonic treadmill of consumption, if you like, whereby we tend to purchase more and more and more products, especially gadgets. And unfortunately, people have a subconscious belief that it's going to make them happier, and it doesn't. But because we believe it's going to make us happy, we keep purchasing the next product in the hope that it's going to fulfill some sort of psychological need.
But what about the specifications and the functionality? You know, for example, on my phone now, I can get email, and I couldn't do that before, and that makes me, I think, happy. Am I just deluded?
It might be practical. No, I wouldn't say you're deluded, but most of the time people don't actually even make use of all the kind of functions that a gadget actually has.
Salman Rushdie once said this thing that we've all got a God-shaped hole inside of us, but I actually wonder whether this hole inside of us is actually the shape of a laptop or an iPod, you know, and that we won't be happy until we can sort of stuff all this technology in and become sort of gods and machines at the same time.
I wouldn't quite put it that way, but I think what people are trying to seek for in life in general is some sort of happiness, and I think if they believe that these products are the route to happiness, then yes, they might have a desire to try to be more fully integrated with them somehow. But if you don't have that belief, you're probably going to back off and see the whole thing as a rather nasty idea.
But you don't see technology as being the road to paradise anyway, do you?
I don't see any consumption being the route to paradise.
The road to paradise doesn't always follow the scenic route. This is Sweep Electronics recycling plant in Kent.
Will every TV in the land end up somewhere like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very well-established legislation now around TVs. They're actually classified as a hazardous waste.
So I guess if you wanted any evidence that people are upgrading all the time, this is it. Because, I mean, it's not long since I had a TV like this. You know, it's not like the 1950s stuff,
No,
is it?
not at all. In fact, I recognise my model on occasions. I've actually got glass tellies still at home myself.
The scale of it is quite overpowering. I mean, it's just all these sort of disgorged inners. It's piling up. It's not pretty, is it?
No, it's not pretty, but you can look at it the other way. At least it's here being recycled rather than going to landfill. It's scary to see it, but I'd much prefer to see it here than not see it at all.
This is a big operation. They recycle 3,000 televisions a day here. They're disassembled by hand, and then the materials are reused to make new TVs. Every day, they also process 40 tons of computers, devices and white goods. An elephant's graveyard of gadgets and gizmos. But what's recycled is only a fraction of what's dumped in landfill.
It feels insane that even stuff like this that's... I mean, it's only a few years old and it would have cost thousands of pounds, just chucked in a tip. It feels like a kind of madness, as if, you know, it can't possibly carry on like this. Well, it's the end of the road for the Palm PDA. I would be lying if I said that I was sorry to see it go. And it's going to that place where all Palm PDAs go at the end of their life. It's Palm PDA heaven it's going to. It's going in the crusher.
I'm glad the PDA has gone to a sound environmental heaven. But will it stop me buying the next new thing? Whether it's frustrating or useful, or simply a beautiful object to impress our friends with, we continue to embrace new technology ever closer. The economic imperative tends to drive innovation forward. The cutting edge of technology is constantly changing, and the possibilities are extraordinary.
We get very emotionally attached to our gadgets, but is there a future where we get physically attached to them as well, to the point where we might want to upgrade ourselves? Is there a future where technology is not just at our fingertips, but in our fingertips? Maybe that's the next frontier.
In the last decade, what was once science fiction has become science fact. Computer chips have been implanted in the cochlea to restore hearing to deaf children. Researchers are working on chips attached to the retina to restore sight loss. Here at Cambridge University's Institute of Biotechnology, they're developing sensors to be implanted inside the body to give doctors real-time information about proteins and molecules inside the bloodstream.
Your first work in this field was with chips, wasn't it?
That's quite correct, yes.
And are these the kind of chips that you were working with?
These are exactly the chips that we developed a few years ago, yes.
So this chip would be, what, implanted into the body?
This particular chip is exactly that. We designed this to monitor glucose and to be implanted within the body. And you can see it's a relatively small-sized chip, and it would be implanted either in a location like here or perhaps around the midriff. The problem with this technology is it's actually quite expensive, and that's more or less why we stopped it, to see whether we could find cheaper alternatives which would allow us to monitor glucose and other metabolites in the body and with a much simpler system.
The scientists are developing two types of sensor, one using light and one using sound. The light device is a hologram, produced by lasers that fire onto specially developed polymers. The hologram changes colour in response to changes in the blood chemistry. With acoustics, a radio signal is sent to the tiny transparent sensor, which then sends back the blood information.
That just looks to me like a contact lens or something.
Yeah, it is actually a quartz disc made out of silica.
And that goes under someone's skin?
Correct, yeah.
And transmits information about what?
One of the major applications of this is to monitor glucose in blood of diabetics in real time. If we can do that and control the blood glucose far more precisely than you would if you were, say, pricking your finger, say, 5 or so times a day, then I think what you'd have is the ability to control the diabetes far better, and you would not suffer a lot of the consequences of diabetes, like blindness, for example, also problems with the kidney.
For now, this sensor technology remains experimental. In the future, the hope is it will improve diagnosis and treatment for conditions such as stress, schizophrenia, and multiple sclerosis. The sensors could help patients better manage their symptoms.
Would you describe this kind of technology as sort of an upgrade to the human body?
In the sense that you're not going to suffer from all the side reactions that you would normally. I mean, of course, it's an upgrade, but there are other applications of that. For example, we've been looking at some of the sports applications, bearing in mind we have the Olympics in 2012, and that the elite athletes are interested in monitoring their glucose levels and their lactate levels, because this determines their performance. And if you could monitor that and have some control over that during training, I think you could upgrade their performance then.
Does that move then to, being able to measure somebody's state of mind?
In terms of measuring their state of mind, it depends on, can we find something to measure which would be an indicator of their state of mind? And if the answer is yes to that we could find a measure of that, some sort of chemical measure of it, then we could in theory do the same thing. But this is a long way into the future, of course.
Technology plays a central role in our imaginations. But just how close do we want our relationship to become? We've placed our faith in these bewildering, ingenious objects to the point where we'd be lost and angry without them. I've got my gadgets though, and after decades of upgrading, they seem perfect to me. So I can be happy with my lot. At least, that is, until tomorrow.